All right, we recorded. You good? You ready to go? All right, very good. This is May 27th, 2015, and we are interviewing Fred Phelps at the Adams County Courthouse in Quincy, Illinois. Fred is 76 years old.
Yes.
Yes, having been born on September 1st, 1938. My name is Don O'Brien. I will be the interviewer. Linda Snyder will be the court reporter for this interview. All right, Fred, we're just going to keep it easy. Just tell me where and when you were born.
I was born in Colesburg, Iowa, on the 1st of September, 1938.
Who were your parents and what were their occupations?
Elsie and Otto Phelps, and they were farmers. And my dad was also a bus driver.
Okay. Where is Colesburg, Iowa?
Northeast Iowa. Way up northeast Iowa, near the Field of Dreams in Dyersville.
Okay. So you've come here quite a ways then today.
Yes, sir.
How far a drive was that for you to get here?
Well, we drove down yesterday.
Okay.
And it's about 4.5 hours.
Wow. Let's get back to a little bit about your biographical. Did you have any siblings, and if so, what were their names?
I had 2 siblings. A sister who was older than I, who died at a very early age, and then I have one sister living in Manchester, Iowa.
What's her name?
Carolyn.
Carolyn. And what was the name of the deceased sister of yours?
Marilyn.
Marilyn and Carolyn. And did you ever get to know Marilyn at all?
No. She only lived just a few days.
I see. Did your sister that lived, did she serve in the military at all or not?
No.
What about your father? Did you have any family that ever served in the military?
No.
Very, very interesting. What were you doing before you entered the service?
I was on the faculty at Blessing Hospital here in Quincy, Illinois.
You were?
And I later became the director of nurses.
Here at Blessing?
Yes.
So how did you get from Colesburg, to Quincy?
Well, I had a 3-year diploma from Findlay Hospital in Dubuque, Iowa, and I was getting my bachelor's degrees at the University of Iowa. And my wife, Ellen, who is from Payson, Illinois, was getting her bachelor's degree, and we met there
at
while
the
we were
University
getting
of Iowa?
our degrees at the University of Iowa.
So then you came down here to nurse?
No, I came down here to teach at the Blessing Hospital School of Nursing.
Okay.
And I was hired on very strict probation because the school had never had a male nurse on their faculty or in their employment. And they didn't think that a male could teach women how to be nurses. And I think that I did very well. I enjoyed that very much.
Do you remember what year it was when you came down here to Blessing? And you can get help from the audience if you need it.
1963.
Okay.
And I later became the director of nursing service at Blessing Hospital.
So you have this life. You're already living your life. You're director of nursing. You're doing these things here at Blessing Hospital. You are about 28 years old or so.
Yes.
When you get the call from the military. How in the heck did I can understand if you were 18 and getting that call back then, but how and why did you get the call?
Well, it was the time when they were building up for Vietnam, and they took all the male nurses across the country into the Army.
So
this was a build-up for Vietnam.
Okay. So you got called in 1966.
Yeah.
Did you know that you were going to go, or was it a surprise to you?
Well, it really was not a surprise. Everyone knew that something was going to be happening over in Vietnam. And so it really was not a great surprise. I had a 6-month guaranteed assignment to Brooke Army Medical Center. And 5 months were completed, and the 6th month I was on leave to go to Vietnam, getting ready to go to Vietnam.
Now, you served in the Army, correct?
Army Nurse Corps.
Army nurse. You're in the Army Nurse Corps.
Yes.
Now, as a nurse, did you have to go through basic training and all those other types of things?
Oh, yes, just like everybody else.
You did. What was, where did you go to basic training at?
At Fort Sam Houston, Texas.
Okay. And what was that experience like for you?
Well, it was an eye-awakening. It was basic training like everybody else. We had to familiarize ourselves with weapons. We went out to Camp Bullis, Texas, and we were out there for 1 or 2 weeks. I don't recall right now how long that was, but we were out there, and we were just out in the field.
Had you, in your background before, had you ever shot a gun? Had you were a hunter or anything?
Never.
All new to you.
Never. And I've never had a gun in my hand since.
Is that right?
Right.
I'm going to assume that you were drafted in the Army. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
They drafted all the male nurses across the country.
And you guys were, and I was looking in the back of your book cover, you were number 1-A or whatever that was. You were right at the top.
Yes. My first job when I graduated from nursing school was at the VA hospital in Iowa City. And there was a reserve unit made up of people who worked at the VA. And I tried to get into that reserve unit, and I could not get in because of my hair, lip, and cleft palate.
Okay.
They wouldn't take me. I was just disqualified.
Because of your hair, lip, and cleft
Yeah,
palate? Because you weren't.
I was 4F.
What does that mean?
Not serviceable. Not
serviceable.
Yeah.
Like Fred, I am deaf in one ear.
Yeah.
I would be 4F. I would not be serviceable, correct?
That's right. I was just not fit for duty.
So you go from 4F to all of a sudden we're in a time of need. Now you're 1A.
I was 4F, and then all of a sudden, when I was here in Quincy, working at Blessing Hospital, I got a letter saying I was 1A. And I thought, wow, that's a switch. And then shortly thereafter, I got a draft notice for active duty.
So were you and Ellen already married by this time?
Yes, we were married. We met in a chemistry class at the University of Iowa. There were 300 women in the class, and I was the only male. And
so
the chemistry took over.
The chemistry took over in chemistry class. Nice. Now you're married. You've got a good job. You're living life here in Quincy. Do you have any children by this point or not?
No children.
No children. So when you got that call to go away, what was that like? What was that like for you and Ellen when you had to be separated from her?
Well, it was pretty devastating because I did have what I considered a very good job. You know, well, yeah, the hospital tried to intervene for me and several other people, but the government won.
The government won. They always win, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
Now, did you have any? Because you were drafted in the Army, you had no other choice. You had to go Army. You
Yes,
couldn't go
I did.
Marines
Yes,
or
I
Air
did.
Force or anything else.
And I went in under great protest, but it was to be a 2-year tour of duty.
2-year tour of duty. And that 2-year tour of duty wound up in 1989. So it was when you had to.
I went in as a captain because I had a Bachelor of Science degree. So that gave me, and I had several years of experience.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked at the VA. I had been employed here in Quincy, and so that gave me some credits. So that gave me a captain rank.
So when were you finally deployed to Vietnam?
On July 4th,
1967.
and I arrived in Vietnam on July 5th.
Of 67?
And that's the basis of my book that I've written called Born on the 5th of July.
What were your responsibilities once you got to Vietnam?
I was the deputy chief nurse of the 616 Medical Clearing Company, which was located just about, between 1 and 2 kilometers south of the North Vietnam border, North and South Vietnam border.
So you were right by the border.
Right by the border. And that's where we got the first casualties from the battle. And if you read the book that I have written, you will be able to see how many casualties we got and what conditions they were in, and you will see how many we got who were dead when they arrived at our.
Can you share maybe a quick story with us about that, just for the video, of anything that really stands out to you amongst, I'm sure, of all the stories you have over there? Is there anything that really you like, okay, this is what I go back to?
Well, as head nurse of the emergency room, we heard that we were going to get quite a few casualties. So I had everybody from the mess hall, the supply department, everybody that we could muster from the whole unit ready. Not only the medics, but everybody, because anybody could have a job, and I had them all prepared. So the deuce-and-a-half truck drove up to the emergency room and backed up to the front door. And my chief medic that worked with me in the emergency room and I went out to meet the truck. And the driver and his assistant got out and lowered the
hitch or the trail, the truck, yeah.
What word do I want to use? The back of the truck. And he said, don't hurry. And all we could see was about 4 or 5 stacks of feet with combat boots on, and they were all dead.
So what's the first thing that flashes through your mind at that point?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Another incident in the emergency room, we had a lot of casualties. Our emergency room was a Quonset hut. All the buildings were Quonset huts. And I had the emergency room organized so that the front of it, on the left-hand side, were people that needed rather immediate attention, but could wait just a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And in the right-hand side, we used for sick call. There were benches there. And way in the back of the emergency room were expected. And expected were people that we couldn't do anything for.
Mm-hmm.
And in the middle of the emergency room is where we tried to stabilize people so we could get them into the intensive care. We had a little intensive care unit right there at the unit. And we would try and stabilize them to get them into that unit. And I remember so vividly this young fellow who was on the floor on a litter, and a doctor was beside me, and I was at the head, and a chaplain was on the other side, and I held this man's wrist and took his pulse, and that was my left hand, and my right hand was on his forehead, and the chaplain was praying, and we were all over him, all around him. And finally I said, "There's no more pulse." And I took his left arm and placed it over his chest. And the chaplain prayed. And to this day, as you can see, that still brings back some bad memories.
I can only imagine.
I still take several medications every night for the nightmares that I have from those experiences in Vietnam. Because if I don't, I wake up screaming and hollering. And people are always falling into big black holes. And I'm trying to rescue them.
That's your nightmare.
Yeah, I'm trying to get them out of those holes. I'm trying to rescue people. And that's how many years later?
Yeah. 40. I mean, it's 50. What? It's been a long time.
Yeah, a long time. I'm still trying to rescue those people.
The medical equipment you use there, the way that the hut was set up, I'm guessing it wasn't as sanitary. I don't know if sanitary is my word, but how did it compare to something like at Blessing Hospital or something stateside? Was it set up nice enough and well enough that you can actually treat people?
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. We had the emergency room. which acted as a sick call station every day. We had a medical ward and a surgical ward and an intensive care unit. And I delivered several babies while I was there in the emergency room, Vietnamese ladies. We took care of some babies and their mothers after they came in. The Vietnamese women, you know, you probably don't know, but the Vietnamese ladies, many of them just squatted and had their babies.
Really?
Yeah. And that's the way they delivered.
Mm-hmm.
That was just normal for them. But then some of them were brought into the hospital and we cared for them. We went out on Medivac, not Medivac, MedCap visits to some of the mountain yard villages. Mountain yards were very primitive. They had no homes. They just migrated from one area to another, and they lived off the land.
Mm-hmm.
They had goats, and they were very, very primitive people. And if we went out there to do a humanitarian visit, we would maybe bring some of those people in.
I see.
And try to help them.
Being so close to the border of North Vietnam, South Vietnam, did that put you right in the middle of, was it a very high concentration area for fighting?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Definitely.
Yeah. And that's what that's probably, how many people did they have? I mean, you're the head nurse, but how many other nurses did they have? How many doctors was it?
Oh, we had a full staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like dozens of people?
Well, yeah, we had a pretty good, I wouldn't say dozens. Our staff was, we had probably, 1, 2, 3, 4 doctors. We had maybe 8 nurses.
Enough to function.
Yeah, but you know, those people, we all worked 12, 14, 16, 18 hours a day.
Yeah.
It was nothing for some of us to work 24 hours.
Yeah.
I'll recall a story for you of a operating room, surgical nurse, operating room nurse, who was Harold Chase from New York. He had worked about 48 hours straight because of all the casualties. And he finally went over to our hooch, our tent that we lived in. There were 4 of us that lived in a tent in in 4 sections. And he went over finally to get some rest. And he had laid down about maybe 3 hours just to get off his feet. And he went back to the operating room because he knew how busy they were. And about 20 minutes after he went back, a mortar round hit our tent and it landed on his cot. Now, you know, I think there's a God.
Yeah.
I know there's a God. Because if he had been there, he'd have been killed. But it ruined our tent.
That's one other thing I was going to ask you was, were you ever worried at all about the hospital hut, the hut that kept your medical spaces being hit by mortar rounds?
Well, you have to worry about that all the time. all the time. One good thing is that they were Quonset huts, so they were metal, and that would deflect some of the.
So has the hut ever hit?
No.
Okay.
No. We had red crosses on the top of them, and it seems to me they respected the red crosses.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you have to get under the cot sometimes though when you were coming in here?
What's that?
Did you have to get under something in the cots or something sometime? Under the sandbags?
He can't hear you. So how long were you in Vietnam for total?
1 year.
You were there for 1 year.
I went over. I landed there on the 5th of July, and I came back on the 1st of July. And the fireworks in town on that 4th of July were not pleasant.
No, it took you right back there, didn't it?
I still don't enjoy fireworks.
Is that right?
After all these years, I just don't appreciate fireworks.
How difficult was it to adjust yourself back to civilian life after seeing what you saw there that year?
Well, not really too difficult.
It wasn't difficult. Did you come back to Quincy, or did you go back to your home in Iowa? Where did you come back to after you did your year of service?
I had a month's leave, and we spent part of that with my folks in Iowa, and part of that with Ellen's folks here in Payson.
Yep.
And visiting friends in Illinois, in Quincy, because that's where we lived and that's where we had a home. And so we visited both areas. And I still had some time on active duty. So we went to Fort Belvoir, Virginia. And because I had my degree and teaching experience, I was assigned to a 91C school, which is equivalent to a civilian practical nursing program.
Okay.
And I taught there. And then, after that, oh yeah, after that, I was called, during that time, I was called into the chief nurse's office. And this lady was very strict, prim and proper.
This is when you're in Virginia.
In Virginia.
Okay.
I don't think she ever sat down because her uniform was never, didn't look like it had any creases in it at all. She was a very strict lady. And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? Or what have my students done?
Yeah.
Because I had students working on the wards. And so I went to her office just shaking. I was so afraid of what was going to happen to me because of what I had done or what one of my students had done. And I didn't think I had done anything. And she said, "Come in here and take a seat." Only she said it more sternly than that. I said, "Yes, ma'am." Back then, it was ma'am and sir. And she said, "You're going to graduate school this fall." I said, "Graduate school?" I said, "I had a bit of a difficulty getting through undergraduate school." "Doesn't make any difference. You're going to graduate school." I said, I'm planning to get out. I'm in the Army for only 2 years. You're going to graduate school. You've been selected by the Army. I said, yes, ma'am. So I did not want to commit myself to any more time to the Army than absolutely possible. Because if you went to school, you owed the Army 2 years of time for every 1 year that you were in school.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I found that the University of Iowa had a 1-year program in nursing service administration.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I liked administration and I liked education, but they had a 1-year program in administration. So I put in an application, and lo and behold, I was chosen. And I went to graduate school at Iowa, 1-year program. Worked my tail off. I could use other words if I wasn't being recorded. And it was a very, very difficult program, but I made it through. And lo and behold, where should I get orders for but Germany? Well, we went to Germany, and there we were there for 3 years.
And what did you do during those 3 years?
I was chief nurse of a medical clearing company in Butzbach, Germany. B-U-T-Z-B-A-C-H, Germany. And spent a lot of time in the field, setting up tents, tearing down tents, doing field exercises.
Not much medicine.
No, it was just, we were doing those things in case we got called up for real patients.
Mm-hmm.
And I was there for 1.5 years. And then after that 1.5 years, we I was transferred to the 97th General Hospital in Frankfurt, Germany. I worked a short time on a surgical ward, and then I was the Chief of Nursing Education and Training, which I was in the height of my glory,
Mm-hmm.
because I love teaching, and so I was in charge of education and training for the whole hospital, and that was a good assignment.
So where did you go from there? Because you stayed in the Army for a long time.
Well, by that time, I was promoted to major. So for every promotion you get, you're committed to 2 more years in the Army. Well, by that time, I have 10 years in the Army. They had me.
Yeah, right?
It was like fishing, you know. They had the sucker on the end of the line. So, from Germany, we went to Fort Ord, California. And there I was director of a 91C school, an Army practical nurse program. And I loved that assignment because I was teaching or director of the school, and I did teach some there as well. Usually the directors don't teach, but I was in charge of that program, and I made sure I was doing some teaching. And met some wonderful people and some wonderful kids who were in there, and some of those kids became nurses, and some became doctors later on. So I hope that I had a positive influence on some of those people. And from Fort Ord, we went back to San Antonio, where I was I worked in intensive care unit, surgical intensive care. Hated it.
Yeah.
Hated it. But then I was fortunate enough to get assigned to
or supervisor. Evening and night supervisor.
Evening
and night supervisor.
Oh, evening and night supervisor, yeah. And now Brooke Army Medical Center at that time was a big place. Now it's even bigger. But I was evening and night supervisor. We had 3 buildings, 3 big buildings. The main hospital, the big beach pavilion, had most of the patients, and then at the far end of the post was the psychiatric building for psychiatric patients.
And these are all military you're dealing with?
This is all military, all Army, all Army. And then later on, I became the chief of nursing education and training there. Then from Brooke, we went to Fort Huachuca, Arizona, where I was the chief nurse.
No, assistant chief. You started out as assistant chief.
Yeah, well, I was chief nurse. And then from Fort Huachuca, I went to Fort Riley, Kansas, chief nurse. From Fort Riley to Fort Monroe, Virginia, chief training and doctrine command. And I had charge of all the student nurses across the country.
Wow.
Who were in ROTC programs, who were coming on active duty when they graduated from college. And each summer we would go up to northern Wisconsin for a summer camp. And they would have their basic training up there. And that's when I worked with Norman Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell.
Wow.
Yeah.
You worked directly for them?
With them.
Yeah, with them, wow.
Yeah. And that was 3 years. And then finally back to Brooke Army Medical Center.
In San Antonio.
In San Antonio, where I was the Deputy Chief, Department of Nursing. And that was a big job with all those hospitals.
You got in this to get out quick.
Yeah, I did.
And here you are, you're talking about a 22 year experience with the Army.
Well, I would have stayed in longer. They had never had a male nurse as the chief of the Army Nurse Corps. I think maybe I could have made it. But I tell you, I was spending a lot of time getting some of my officers out of jail. They were shooting drugs, medicine, drugs that they should have been giving their patients. Instead, they were taking them themselves.
Oh.
I made rounds, and I actually found some of my lieutenants in bathrooms putting medicine in their own veins that they should have been giving their patients. And I went home and I said to my wife, Ellen, life is too short for this. I got to get out.
Yeah.
And that's when I decided to retire.
In 89. What was the highest rank that you achieved?
Pardon?
What was your highest rank that you achieved?
Colonel, full colonel.
Colonel.
Yeah.
So once you got, let's go back a little bit about your service real quick. How much did that year that you spent on the front lines in Vietnam, how much did that craft, how much did that, I'm trying to think of the word I want to use here. How much did you see there carry out with you for the rest of your service in the military and the rest of your life? How much did that shape what Fred Phelps is and became after that?
Well, I would say it affected me dichotomously. First of all, I still take medicine.
You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah. Secondly, it introduced me to some people whom I'll never forget. And I still have contact with some of those people.
Yeah. I think it made me appreciate life more than it would have had I not had that experience. Did you have to numb yourself to death?
I don't think so. I've always been a person of faith. And I think it made my faith stronger. Those experiences make you believe that there really is a God somewhere. And you know that those people have gone to a better place, I think.
Yeah. So do you continue to work as a nurse after you retired from the military or not?
I did. I went to a nursing home and worked at Dyersville, Iowa.
Okay. Field of Dreams.
And that was quite an experience.
Yeah. Worse than being in the military?
No, not any worse, but a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The older people were a lot of fun. It was in a German community, and I still volunteer there every once in a while.
And you probably dealt with a lot of people who had gone through similar experiences yourself, being in the military, things of that nature or not?
Well, some of them the men hadn't been in World War II.
Yeah.
I don't know whether this is appropriate or not, but one of the things I want to share with you, and you can use it or you just bleep it out, but I was working the evening shift one time, and there was a little old German lady who was in the bathroom, and her light was on, and I went in and I said, "Can I help you?" And she said, "Yes, I need help to get off the bathroom stool." Well, I said, "Do you care if I help you?" She said, "No. If you ain't seen what I got, you won't know what it is anyhow." They were just fun to work with.
Yeah.
And I, for years, played the role of Santa Claus
At the home.
at the home. And they would go through and they would say, "I know who you are. I know who you are." And you know, the most amazing thing down there was one lady had never spoken for years. For years. And her family was with her at the Christmas party.
Mm-hmm.
And I went by her, and she said the word Santa Claus. And her family were all in tears
Because she spoke.
that she said the word Santa Claus after having never spoken a word for all those years. Now that really does something to you.
Yeah. How were you treated when you came home from Vietnam?
I was treated very fine.
Okay.
I was fortunate enough to be in a small town. Our town is less than 400 people or so. And I was treated very, very, very well.
And how do you think veterans are treated nowadays?
I haven't been around many veterans. I think they're treated with more respect today than we were.
Mm-hmm.
In general. Now, as I said, in my town, I was treated fine.
Sure.
But I think great respect. We just had Memorial Day, and I see that, you know, everything was veterans, and respect for veterans. I believe great respect is shown now.
Yeah.
Fred, Iowa City. Remember Iowa City?
Oh my, yes. I went back to Iowa City to get my master's degree, and we were having, the Army was having a ball, and my wife and I were almost afraid to go to the ball because of the tremendous disrespect for the military at that time.
Mm-hmm.
It was bad. It was bad in college campuses across the country. Very bad. But we went. And there wasn't not too much disruption at that particular location.
Yeah.
But the campuses across the U.S.
That's bad. Do you, Fred, do you belong to any veterans organizations like
yes.
Legion or VFW or anything like that?
Legion, VFW.
Are you active in those?
I'm very active at our Legion post.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Yes, yes.
I just wrote a story over the last weekend about how, especially in smaller towns, Legion halls Legion membership is really starting to dwindle. Are you seeing that as well?
Well, we're not dwindling, but we aren't gaining any either.
Yeah.
But whenever we have a Legion function, a lot of people who don't go to the regular meetings, like for funerals, oh my, every Legionnaire around attends.
Is that right?
Yes, yes. Now, tomorrow? No. Oh, we had it already. Yeah, we had maybe 20 Legionnaires for the Memorial Day activities, where normally at the Legion meetings we'll have 8 at the most.
Yeah. Would you encourage others to get into the military?
Yes, I would. We have a relatively small high school, and there were several graduates who indicated they were going into the military. I would say, well, we have about 34 or 38 graduate, and I think there were maybe 6 of those that said they were going into the military.
If you had it to do over again, although you really didn't have a choice to go into the military, are you glad that are you being where you sit now? Are you glad that you had that experience in your life?
I am very, very, very glad. I thought I had a good job at Blessing, but I had a better job in the military. And I have a nice retirement.
Mm-hmm.
And we met so many, many wonderful people. And we still have so many friends that we correspond with. Some of them who live in Pennsylvania have a son in Colorado, and they're going to stop by our place on the way back from Colorado.
So you wouldn't trade it for anything?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, Fred, that we didn't go over?
I can't think of anything. I just appreciate being able to share this information, and I hope it will be shared with other people. It's been a grand ride.
Well, great. I tell you what, thank you.